Hi folks, I'm Sheila and welcome to Counsellor Convos. Let's get stuck in. Hi folks, welcome to another episode of Counsellor Convos, and we're continuing on to look at suicide prevention, folks, looking at that statistic that came out last year, that workers in the construction industry are now 4 times more likely to die by suicide than any other sector. I am delighted to have Robin here with me. So Robin, if you're happy to introduce yourself in whatever way you feel comfortable to do so.
Okay, hi Sheila. Robin Denton. I'm the Operations Director at Alpha Construction Limited. We're a SME, I guess, is what we're classed as in the civils and building industry as a contractor. We employ direct about 60 people, and we supplement that with obviously specialist subcontractors and agency staff as well. I've been here, it'll be 18 years in September.
Wow, fair play.
Initially as a contracts manager, working for some fairly old school civils contracts directors, and moved into a director's role in 2016. And since then, obviously, I've had more of a handle on where the business goes with in relation to all things mental health, really.
Yeah, absolutely, Robin. So you've been there quite a while, 18 years.
I know, blink of an eye.
Really, it's not very fast for you, has it?
Well, and it sort of coincided with having children, so I think that always makes time go quickly because everything's so governed by not only your scheduling at work, which obviously in the construction industry it just drives everything. You've got the same stuff going on at home as well.
I wonder for you, Robin, do you work like 9 to 5 hours, or do they vary the hours that you have to do?
It's quite variable, and I'm in a quite fortunate position now. I'm in the position that I can sort of dictate a bit more about that. But day to day, it's typically sort of 9 till 5-ish. But the phone is always on. I get the calls at the weekend, get the calls in the evening. On holiday, I'm always just in touch, just making sure that things.
Wow, Robin! So for you, do you ever switch off then?
Oh yeah, I do. I'm fortunate that I've managed to work that out. Although perhaps my wife will have something else to say about that. She worked in the pharmaceutical industry, and she can never understand. She finishes at 4 o'clock, I think it is. She'll have me for that. I think it's 4 o'clock, and because she's always been then rushing back to sort the kids out, nursery and then school or whatever, she's had to leave at that time. She could never understand why I can't just finish at 5:15 and depart. And this industry is not like that.
Yeah, say more about that as to why it's, why you can't just finish on the ideal time that you'd like to. What sort of things come up? What gets in the way of that?
So, as a civil engineering building contractor, there are always great plans in place, and there's usually a plan A, B, C, etc. But every day, it's unlikely that any of those plans go absolutely as planned.
Yeah.
And so what happens is there's a certain amount of firefighting that goes on to keep the show on the road. Meanwhile, everything else that you planned on doing in that day sort of falls to the end of the day.
Yeah.
And then you're scrambling in that last hour and you're watching your clock thinking, I need to be on the road.
Yeah.
I need to be home. I've got responsibilities there. And you're quickly trying to respond to emails and
Wow. A
get
lot of
meta
pressure.
statements out or whatever it is,
Mm.
you're doing. And that goes for sort of a lot of my contracts managers.
Yeah.
They're dealing with that firefighting constantly. I'm not so much doing that now, but I have an appreciation of it because I did it for here I did it for 12 years.
Yeah.
And it can be brutal. It can be
Yeah.
brutal.
How do you manage that? How, from a mental health point of view, then how does that not drive you insane? How do you counteract that?
Um, I don't know. I think a lot of it is the sort of person you are and
Yeah.
how you, the big thing in mental health is self-help, obviously,
Hmm.
self-preservation, if you like, of having all those mechanisms that possibly you don't even realize are mechanisms, but you
Yeah.
just use them and deal with them. So doing a park run on Saturday morning, bit of fresh air, bit of exercise,
Yeah.
going for a run in a week, if you can get the time. But there again, we're in those time constraints and everything that goes with that work-life balance. So it is difficult, and I see it in my guys here now. I'm thinking, yeah, I can remember that,
Yeah.
and I suspect that people do burn out.
Yeah.
That it's a difficult industry. Everything's program driven.
Yeah, Robin, if I could just pause you there, because you've mentioned quite a lot of things, which is absolutely fabulous. And I'm loving your honesty in sharing that because I think it's so important with the construction industry to look at all the different workers from all types of management. Everybody is affected by this. It's interesting actually because when I was delivering talks to JCB last week, one of the things I really emphasize, and I do believe this, and I believe you've mentioned this, is that it is full on when you're at work, whatever, a part role that you're playing, that, and like the production line, management, the logistics of it all, getting things out. And then, of course, the unexpected stuff that happens. So, effectively, kind of in an ideal world, when you go into work, you kind of need to be ready for it, ready for all eventualities, know that there's going to be unexpected stuff that's going to happen. And my belief is that it's so important what you do outside of work. So when you mentioned that perhaps a park run on a Saturday, or it's the stuff outside of work to kind of counteract that, that is really, really important because if you don't have all this good stuff going on, going out into nature, make sure you're really looking after yourself outside of work, well, then it is going to be very hard to be on it for work.
Yeah, yeah, and it's the guys that I've got working for me in the contracts management team here. I think all three of them are mad cyclists. Yeah, either mountain bikes or road bikes, and in fact, two of them did a challenge in the Lake District either last weekend or the weekend before. Bonkers, I don't know, it's 100 and something miles. Fred Whitten challenge, I think it was.
You weren't tempted to do it yourself then, Robin?
Oh, no. But that's how they get their fresh air and exercise. And I think that's how they cope with the stress. And it's interesting that we've ended up talking about the sort of the management side of things and their mental health, because of course these stats really, and I've done a bit of research on this since we first talked about doing this, and it's all very much focused on suicide rate in construction workers, which tends to be the guys on the ground. There's very little detail about how many suicides or mental health episodes of individuals occur in that management structure.
Isn't that interesting?
It is really, really stressful environments.
Yeah.
Clients who have demands. Careful what I say. But it's a difficult environment to work with, and I guess that the thing that they don't have is that physicality that the guys and girls on site do.
Yeah.
Which is obviously another contributing factor to mental health issues of physicality and perhaps strains and injuries, whether they've happened at work or whether they've happened outside work, and it just it's one of those things. Interestingly, did you know? Here's a stat for you. I've got a page of stats here.
Go for it.
Did you know that 87% of the construction workforce are male?
And that doesn't surprise me. Yeah.
And 50% of those are self-employed.
Okay, interesting. Mm.
Yeah. So, and one of the other contributing factors to mental well-being of these guys on site is the uncertainty of how long the contract's going to last for, where they're going to be working next. So it just puts things into context a little bit, I think, that there's so many of the workers out there are faced with these situations, and then you see the stats of the four times more likely occurrence of a suicide within the construction industry than anywhere else.
Yeah.
And that 34 people in every 100,000 reported in 2023.
Wow, that's pretty shocking, Robin, hearing that.
Terrific, isn't it?
You know, that word that you mentioned, uncertainty, because I have my private practice, so I see people for one-to-one counselling. So you really get to hear their individual stories. And exactly that uncertainty. It makes me wonder, like, because you know, sometimes you don't know when your next job is going to be. You know, you saw that a lot of people are self-employed in this industry. What's the way to combat that? Is it a case of a bit like, because my background is comedy and acting, so I know that you wouldn't always get the roles and stuff like that you would have periods where the work wouldn't be around. And to combat that, it'd be a case that when the work was good, earn as much money as you can and almost preempt the fact that there are going to be slow periods, as in most people who are self-employed actually will go through that. So is it about financial management then? Do you think somebody's good with money? Do you think they could do that? Do they get paid enough to do that? To save for a rainy day?
The industry is buoyant at the moment. There's a massive issue with skills shortages.
Yeah.
So there's no work deficit. The work is out there for people, but I think you've hit on another factor there with the finances, because these guys who are working for themselves are usually the rates have gone through the roof. I mean, it is actually quite eye-watering.
Okay.
Some of the rates that we're having to pay, certainly for temporary workers, and you think, wow, they're earning a lot of money.
Yeah.
So what's then going wrong? And I think you said it before about the management of their money.
Yeah, financial management, because we do need to look at the bigger picture. It's like when I was speaking with Lorraine from Sika, and that's on another podcast for people listening in here, that she's so passionate about the construction industry, and I totally get that. And she was afraid that this statistic might label the construction industry as if it's the construction industry's fault. And I could totally see where she was coming from with that, because you do have a demographic where it's more male, and then we know that it's more males, unfortunately, that take their life.
Yeah.
Well, it is looking at lots of different perspectives here, because there will be so many factors to this. And financial management has got to be one of those factors.
Well, it's not taught, is it?
No.
Not taught in school. And it's one of those life skills that probably should be.
Yeah.
Especially if you're from perhaps a background that a socio-economic background that has never learnt that either.
Absolutely. And I suppose that makes us think of a lack of education in lots of different things. Like some people, they're financially poor, they mightn't have the finances to send people to college, to university. There are circumstances they might have to take young people out from school because they've got to care for a family member. So then sometimes you can have that lack of education, that lack of being able to be at school to form those relationships, those social skills. There's so much to take on board with this. So I think it's really good that we're having these open conversations because it isn't one factor. There's so many different factors as to
Right.
why this is happening.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned it earlier on about the sort of unscheduled event.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if people are dealing with a lot of situations already, it only takes perhaps that one unscheduled event to tip them over, and it become a really big problem.
Yeah, absolutely, Robert. It's interesting because even like this morning, that we had scheduled to do this earlier on this morning. Now, you weren't to know what the traffic was going to be like. We were trying to set up the Zoom call from some dodgy car park, I think you were saying, you know.
Yeah, I'm not. I won't want to be there in the at dusk or in the evening. I think,
Okay, we won't name the car park, okay? We won't name and shame, okay? And but it's interesting. So when you look at my day, because I like to think I practice while I preach. So I've got my clients in the afternoon. I knew I was doing this recording this morning. So I expect unexpected events. I do
yeah,
because that is life, and that it is. It's about practicing what we preach. It's like, for example, you were able to do this now, so you haven't completely packed up your day to cater for unexpected events. And I kind of think moving forward, I think whatever role you're playing in the construction industry, experience tells you to expect the unexpected. Don't pack up your day. Give yourself a bit of leeway. Would you
yeah,
agree, Robin?
yeah, absolutely. And yeah, you think you've seen it all. You think you've got the T-shirt, and there's always something to surprise you. Always something to catch you out. Always the unexpected
Yeah.
occurs, and you think, well, I should have second guessed that was going to happen. Really, but
Well, we're not mind readers. Sometimes we've got a lot on. Robin, when we chatted last week, it was fascinating to hear the whole process about if a worker is struggling, what that might look like, what support is there, and what are the processes in place. Because I could imagine this could be very delicate.
mm,
It must be hard, I'm guessing, to manage that because you've got an element of a duty of care from
yeah,
an employer and manager, but then you also have the individual, an element of self responsibility.
yeah,
So I was fascinated by that, Robin. For anybody that might be listening to this, that's in the construction industry, in a management role, and they're a bit unsure about processes, or I don't know, what's been helpful for you in your own experience going through that process and covering as many angles as you can, really.
wow, yeah. Where do I start with that?
Yeah.
I think the starting point is like any health and safety management structure. It's about culture in
Okay.
the business, and if you've generally got a good culture in the business, I would suggest that the people working within the business don't even recognise that those support systems are actually in place
Yeah.
because it's a good place to work and there's a
Yeah.
good culture.
What does that
Um,
mean, Robin? When you say good culture, what does that look like to you then?
to me, that's a supporting, caring, empathetic
Yeah.
organisation with those shared beliefs and at the understanding of it. And I think that what we've done over the last certainly over the last 10 years is we've done a lot of training with mental health.
Yeah.
So we've got quite a few mental health first aiders within the business now.
Which I believe you are one yourself.
I am indeed. Yeah. And then we've also appointed probably 2 years ago a health and wellbeing officer.
Nice, yeah.
Who deals with all of our occupational health screening, runs all the what would you call them, the monthly awareness week, whatever's going on,
sure,
whether it be eating disorders, smoking, or mental health, like of course it was last week.
Yeah.
So last week we ran a program of Toolbox Talks with everyone on site.
Yeah.
We sent out a sort of poster campaign to all the sites with just some things to think about, but also the support structure that we've got in place through various organisations we're either members of, or we have a private healthcare scheme which has a mental health helpline.
Yeah. So sorry, Robin, if I can just pause with that and just ask about that support structure. So if, let's say, somebody then in your company, if they are struggling, what would be the first point of contact? Where would they go?
The first point of contact would usually be either site manager, if that individual felt comfortable. And this is what we always say when we put these names and contacts out there, is, there are different people who you can talk to, depending on who you feel comfortable talking to. My name's on there. Not everyone will want to speak to me.
I think you're quite easy to speak with, Robin.
Yeah, but they do.
Yeah, okay.
They do. And our health and wellbeing officer, she's because she's away from the day-to-day stuff, she can be quite a good ear. Yeah. Listening ear. I think there's this possible misconception, or even a conception in some cases, that perhaps some of the site managers who tend to be the more mature members of the team, and I'm not just talking about here, I'm talking across the industry, are less aware, less accepting of the whole mental health agenda, if you like. Call it that.
Yeah. Do you know what, Robin, if we were to give an example of that, so I've gone to many sites, so different organisations with the talks that I do, and in speaking to the staff on the ground, I have actually experienced that. So to give an actual direct example of that, I was speaking to an elderly staff member, and they were going on about the snowflake younger generation, and that they don't know what real work is and stuff like that. And afterwards, now the site manager was hearing these conversations while she was offloading to me, and I was saying nothing, and then afterwards, me and the site manager, we had a very interesting chat about generational behaviours and the misconceptions that she may come from a time where kind of post-war times, and it was survival, and you didn't have time to think about your mental health, and it was all about get on with it and stuff like that, and a real work yourself into the ground ethos kind of type thing. Yeah. You have a younger generation then that luckily for hopefully for a lot of them, they don't have as much of that. Believe you me, they have the other issues and stuff going on. But it's almost it's the judgments and expectations and the lack of understanding here. So just to give that some context and an example of that.
Well, I've got a similar sort of example. In fact, I was chatting with one of my colleagues this morning about it, that some of our sort of more mature site managers, mature being in age, rather than
mentally. Hold on, you could be digging yourself a hole here, Robin. Let's make a name and a name. Okay?
You would look at them and think, they're old school, rusty tufty type managers, the ones who are likely not to instill that good culture of being approachable and to be non-judgmental and be able to signpost people, and some of those guys you'd think, that's a problem. But some of those guys have actually had their own situations to deal with.
Yeah.
And in doing so, they've recognised, I think, that this isn't just about manning up. There's more to this, that I need to be treating people perhaps how I want to be treated myself.
Yeah, it's about self-awareness, Robin, and unfortunately, a lot of people don't have it, and I don't mean to be judgmental when I say that, myself included, until I went to counselling myself. That a lot of people, they really mean well, but most times they've no idea how they're coming across.
Yeah, but I think that's probably it's not unsurprising that if you've not had that situation in your life personally, or you've not witnessed it with perhaps a very close family member, then there's a bit of ignorance to it, isn't there?
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah,
and that's not because they're nasty people or anything. It's just that they don't get it because they've not experienced it, or they've not been educated in it.
Yeah.
And that's rather a nice segue into my next statistic for.
Robert, I know there'd been. I could tell by this. The smile was building up. Like I tell.
It was, yeah.
Actually, there's another fact coming here.
It's like a what's that? What's that game where the blocks fall down and they all fit into place? Okay, I don't know. I know what you mean. Tetris.
All
the blocks are falling into place. Yeah. So. Since 2018, and this is according to the Building Mental Health Partnership. So since 2018, they have trained 10,000 mental health first aiders.
Wow.
So that's 10,000 more people in the industry with knowledge, awareness, skills.
Yeah.
Dealing with mental health issues, which is fantastic, and that number will be growing. There's obviously more and more people doing it.
Yeah.
And that awareness hopefully will filter through the entire workforce, and it becomes less of a stigma or a stigmatized situation.
Yeah.
But having said that, the other stat which isn't particularly encouraging is the fact that in the last 5 years the number has been pretty static. It's slight increase every year still. So although the industry is doing something, it's not quite enough.
Okay, let's look at another factor: male pride. Okay, that from your own point of view, that this is still a problem. The problem being that when you look at generational behaviours and beliefs, that blokes, no way of saying it, that you still have a lot of blokes, not all blokes, thankfully, but a lot of blokes that still believe that showing your vulnerability is a sign of weakness. To admit that you're struggling is a sign of weakness and you shouldn't do it. What would you say to that, Robin?
Well, I can see it. But I think times are changing, and I've got examples of experience in our business where particularly the younger generation are not afraid of putting their hand up.
Great.
And saying, struggling with this, whether it's a bereavement in the family, they feel able to hold the hand up and sort of fess up to it, and we can then help them deal with that, and we have done. It's one of those things that I think we're as a business, probably quite proud of, that we do have that available for people to be able to hold a hand up and not suffer in silence, because that's sort of where it starts to go wrong if they don't have that outlet. And the other thing is that although you said it's very it's blokes, and
I know
there's that laddie culture out there, but that laddie culture generally, when they're if they're all together a lot of the time, and what we're finding now is when they're working away, rather than staying in the bed and breakfast or above the pub or something, because those places have disappeared, really. They've closed down, and people are using Airbnb and Booking.com, and they're renting a house for a week, and a group of them are living together, they're cooking together. There was one group, I think, was it last Christmas or the Christmas before, they filmed a bit of a Christmas dinner they did one evening.
Oh, hey, I mean, that sounds really positive.
They'd all cooked. They'd all done a course. Someone had gone and done the shopping. Someone had been out and got a few beers and a bottle of wine or whatever. Yeah. And they'd got the party hats on. They pulled the crackers, and it was really heartwarming to see it, to be honest.
Yeah.
And because that's great for us to see that these guys are not just out there churning it out for us.
Yeah.
It is a way of life, but it's and it's not for everyone.
Yeah.
It really isn't for everyone.
Yeah.
But for those who it is a thing, that they play it to their advantages, and and provide that environment then for others coming into the industry, particularly the younger ones who perhaps never done it before.
Yeah.
They're a bit anxious about it all. That actually this is all right. Actually, this is good. But so you've got that laddie camaraderie going on as well, which I think is another support mechanism that we can't make that happen.
Yeah.
We've just got to hopefully employ the right sort of people, provide a good working environment, so that they can then sort of flourish outside of work as well.
Yeah, and it sounds fabulous, Robin. It sounds like in an ideal world, you would have guys and women like that. We know there's women in the industry as well, so we're not going to completely generalize here. No. But when they're working away in an ideal world, they would make it work for them. As you say, that they'd rent out a house so they wouldn't be on their own, because we know loneliness can be such a problem here. So that's a great way to combat that, where a group of them come together in a house and they share the roles. And that to me just sounds amazing. It's interesting then, because then it makes me think of learned behaviour. So in an ideal world, you would have guys then to take self-responsibility, that they're happy to help each other, and that they've got healthy behaviours going on. So they might get their bottle of wine, couple of cans, but they're not getting completely bladdered, or they're not involved in a drug culture where it's like, come on lads, let's get whatever. That unfortunately, this is something that I am coming across in my own private practice, is sometimes working away, people are lonely, they drink a lot more because they're lonely. Some of them are taking drugs. Now, we know that's a massive problem because you need to be competent to be able to do your work. And of course, you're tested for that, so there's a risk of you losing your job. But what I found is that some of these people, they come from an upbringing where alcohol, drugs is part of the culture that they're used to. And it can be very difficult. And there can be an element of naivety as well, Robin, where they're like away from home. Some of them might have never been away from home. Then it's so easy to where what starts off is just a bit of fun, having a couple of drinks, smoking a couple of joints, thinking nothing of it, to that habit and becoming, an addiction, actually, and that becoming a real problem.
Yeah, and that has both mental health connotations and physical connotations, that if they're under the influence from the night before, they take a wrong turn as they're walking through a site and they're flattened, you know?
Yes. Yeah.
So there's lots of concerns around drugs and alcohol for both aspects. Interestingly, we're on 2 sites at the moment where the principal contractor, as part of the induction process, is doing a drugs and alcohol test.
Oh, okay.
And and just to go back to those stats earlier about the number of temporary workers.
Yeah.
And this is really quite interesting. The our own guys who work for us direct.
Yeah.
Not a problem.
Okay.
Not a problem. The agency guys we've had, some, not all, far from it. Far from it. We've got some great guys working on these sites, but there's some have not been able to start work because they've tested positive in the drugs test.
Okay. Yeah.
And they've been told by their agency, just so you know, there's a drugs and alcohol test. And if you fail that, you won't be starting. So, you know, even if you were having a lively weekend last weekend, just have a think about that. And they say, yeah, fine. I'm fine, it's not a problem. Yeah. They don't make it. They turn up, they get tested, they fail it.
I mean, you know,
really?
That goes back to self-responsibility again. You know, there has to be an element of that because there has to be procedures in place. Because, as you say, if somebody's under the influence, they're a risk to themselves and everybody else around them, even more so in the construction industry. So there has to be, I'm glad there's testing that goes on. There needs to be. And at the same time, it's not for everybody. So if somebody has a problem with alcohol or drugs that they're not willing to do something about, the construction industry is not for them, and rightly so. There has to be personal responsibility, and there are lots of agencies out there to help with drug addiction, to help with alcohol addiction. There are lots of places people can go, and I always encourage people that if they have an addiction, go and get that specific help. I've referred workers onto that specific help.
Yeah. There's lots of help out there, isn't there, for all sorts of things. It's just knowing it's there, being signposted towards it, and then actually having the having the balls, can I say that, to actually make that call. It's
it goes back to that fighting again, about kind of, taking that ownership. Actually, I don't want to say admitting to something, because that almost sounds like, I don't know.
There's a problem with it.
It's more acknowledging, because we have to have an element of self-responsibility. I bang on about that so much in my talks, but I think it is important. Yes, it's great that the companies have a structure in place and they want to help. Any of us can be struggling at any time, bereavement, lots of things can happen unexpectedly in our lives, to go back to that word again. But however, there has to be an element of the worker helping themselves too.
Absolutely, yeah. I couldn't agree more.
Do you know what? I feel like you've another stat, Robin. Have you another stat coming in?
Not another stat so much as well, I've got all sorts here, but just stick on.
Have we gone through all the stats?
No, I think I've got another one. But
I can tell you enjoying the stats, so
Yeah, I like a stat. As all of us as employees have a duty under the Health and Safety Work Act, 1974, and the Management Health and Safety Regs in construction, again, that you have to look after yourself, self-respect, as you said, self-awareness, responsibility, and those around you who you're, I can't remember now the exact wordage verbatim, but it's along the lines of your actions that might have an impact on others. So if someone else gets hurt because of your inaction. So everyone has a legal responsibility, aside from the moral responsibility of
Yes. So, Robin, let me ask then, if let's say you had a case scenario where somebody was in that real blame mindset that it's everybody else's fault, and for whatever reason they're not willing to take responsibility for themselves, can you then effectively use that act where you get to a place where maybe you work with HR, where you are in a place where it's not working, that if you have to, it's not fire, but effectively, yes, fire a person because it's not working yet. Do they want to blame you? Do want to? Do you know what I mean? I just wonder how you.
Yeah, we fortunately we've never had to fall back on that, and it's more likely to be used in in some sort of court case where there's perhaps been an injury and you're talking about culpability and as an employer, you're always culpable whether you like it or not.
Okay.
For your people's actions, if they do something silly, it's on your watch. You're going to get nailed for it. But
it's difficult.
But the contributing factors, which go back to the law, means that individuals do have to take responsibility for that as well. If we've ever got an issue with someone causing problems and they're thinking it's us, not them, it's about having the discussion. It's about having the environment and the people to speak to them openly, to have those almost informal discussions before you even get to any sort of disciplinary. We hate having to do disciplinaries. It's really demoralising for everyone involved. If we can get it sorted out softly first, that's the way to do it.
Yeah, and it sounds.
But not doing anything is not an answer either. You can't just let it go. You've got to deal with it.
Absolutely. You can't be nipping stuff into the just nipping it in the bud, expect it to go away. So again, that's down to kind of people's approaches, their attitudes. So if we don't mention it, it won't happen again. It's that difference between that fine line of escalating and de-escalating. What behaviours come into play for both?
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, and then you're into a whole new, not a whole new thing, but a whole other avenue which you could get lost down with behavioural safety.
Yeah.
That's not for today.
That's not for today.
I'll give you another stat though.
Oh, I know it. I know there was another stat. Come on, then.
Completely, not quite. Bit of a tangent, but this is one I've seen. It's from 2020, so we're in the pandemic, so.
Okay.
I think you've probably got to take it with not a pinch of salt so much as just take it in context.
Yeah.
So this stat, and I can't remember where I saw this. I have got a list, by the way, of where I've got this information.
I bet you do.
So you can.
If any listeners want to,
absolutely.
Has got all this information while he was in the car park. We won't judge. We won't judge you, Robin. Okay, we're non-judgmental.
In 2020, there's a statistic here that, in fact, I know where this came from. This came from Mental Health First Aid England, actually.
Okay.
1,752 people lost their lives in road traffic collisions in the UK. Now, bearing in mind that 2020 was a funny year and not so much travelling going on, and I wonder how different in years prior and years since we've sort of come out of that, what that statistic is. But how many suicides do you think, not just in construction, but across the country? How many suicides are
2020?
In 2020, how many do you think?
I had stats somewhere myself. Do I think it's as many as the road accidents? I probably think it's similar, or maybe a lot less.
The number is 6,479.
Ooh, wow. But the pandemic.
Yeah, there'll be a lot of within that, for the year, so it's probably not as good.
Yeah.
Or not the best.
But
it's still a shocking statistic.
It's absolutely shocking. Do you know what, Rob? Like, I'm mindful that we're coming towards the end of our today. That it is so important to have these conversations, to explore different factors as to what might be going on. I don't believe any of us have exactly the answers, but I think it's important to open up the conversations and that we share our experiences, especially in the construction industry. So I really encourage any listeners for this podcast to comment, to add anything that you may find helpful. Let us know if anything we've spoken about has been helpful to listen to. But yeah, I just think it's so important that we don't ignore, this statistic, and that we're exploring it, we're looking at the support that's out there, and we're looking at it from all angles. So, Robin, thank you so much, for taking it out twice, once in a car park.
Indeed, yeah. Won't be going back there again.
You know what? You have to have a bit of humour because it's such a serious subject. And
it is, yeah. Yeah, it is. And have you? Did you have a look at that Instagram? Signpost you towards.
The fact you're going to share that. So this was, go on, share it with the listeners. Yes, I did have a look. Go on, share it with the listeners, Robin. You explain.
Oh God, I can't remember what it's called now.
Was it disappointing affirmations?
Disappointing affirmations.
Yeah.
That's it. There was a great one. I can't turn the phone off. People need to look it up on Instagram. It's a book this guy's got out. I think he's had some mental health issues himself in the past, and he's flipped it on its head and finding humour in it. And there tend to be statements, but with a background of a serene hillside or the ocean or something, and it is brilliant. It just works. I'm not sure you can buy the book in the UK yet, but it will be coming out, and there's some really good stuff in there.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of a sign above the kitchen door that says, "Don't take life too seriously. No one gets out alive anyway."
Yeah. It's exactly that. It's
exactly that. It's finding the humour and I suppose the grounding in all of this. And and it is important to have that to counteract that, You need the humour to counteract the seriousness of this. Robin, thank you so much for your time today.
No, thank you. It's almost like a little bit of as well for me,
Oh, do you know what? I'm delighted to hear that, Robin. It's important to talk, isn't it?
It is indeed, yeah.
From a male point of view, it's great, to have you on and modelling those behaviours of just being able to talk. It does make a huge difference.
It does, yeah.
Oh, good stuff, Robin. Okay, you look after yourself.
Yeah, you too.
See you soon.
Oh, yeah, we'll see you soon.
Okay, bye.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to Counsellor Convos with Sheila McMahon. If you've enjoyed this episode, consider checking out her YouTube channel or pop on her website, mindmanagementforyou.com.